Hello and welcome to this amazing chess games video. And an amazing chess game doesn't always have to be a perfect chess game. In fact, sometimes chess games that have some mistakes in them can be even more entertaining and especially instructional. So let's see what we can learn from this chess game, which took place in 1834. Now, this is an older chess game, but sometimes it can be beneficial to learn from the past masters. And so this game was played by Macdonald with the white pieces versus Labourdonnais. And I believe these were two of the top players back in the early 1800s, before Staunton and Morphy and some of the other greater players that came after them. So let's see what happened in this game. Macdonald, he starts off with e4, which was played often back then because, until they played chess later in the 1800s and into the 1900s, before then, chess was more about attacking and sacrificing material. It was a more tactical game. So e5 is the response, and then we have f4, the King's Gambit, which was played much more often back then. You bring up this pawn, a flank pawn, attacking a valuable central pawn. And so what does the opponent do? Well, Labourdonnais captures, he accepts the gambit. We have the King's Gambit accepted, and now knight to f3 is played. So what did this accomplish? Well, it kind of encouraged Black to waste time moving a pawn a second time here. Now, he does go up in material here, and we're going to discuss why you shouldn't be greedy in chess. It's good to go ahead in material if you can, but you have to calculate a little bit and make sure that you don't get too greedy, and that can backfire on you, as we'll see in this game. So right now, Black goes up a pawn. The knight is developed, which helps cover this square, potentially preventing the queen from coming in and attacking. So now Black decides to continue attacking on the king side. And this also defends the pawn in case this pawn pushes forward and the bishop would have an attack on that pawn. And there's also the possibility of continuing the attack, going after the knight. So the game continues with development by Macdonald. So we see how important this is. He's already got two pieces developed. This bishop is aimed at the weak point, this f pawn on the king side that's only protected by the king. And also white is ready to castle. So we continue with another pawn that has moved twice here in the opening. And the knight is under attack. So Black does gain a little bit of time going after this knight if white moves that knight away. But here Macdonald, and if we look at the game or the computer here, it says that Black has the about a little bit more than a one pawn advantage because of course he is up a pawn. And the game continues with knight to c3, a mistake according to the computer, that immediate castling would have been better. So, amazingly, he just lets this knight sit there under attack by the pawn. So, of course, Black grabs more material. And look at this. Black is still ahead with a 3/4 pawn advantage, but it would have been better just to develop a piece, bring a knight out here to c6, and he would have been a half a pawn better. So now we have castling, and the computer determines that this is a mistake at this point, that it would have been better to go ahead and just capture this pawn, maybe before castling. And now we have a mistake by Black here, pushing this pawn, maybe with the idea of keeping pieces out of b5 and d5. Also the option of maybe pushing a pawn forward to attack, or maybe even pushing the d pawn. But white has the advantage now after this move. The equivalent of 1 pawn advantage, even though he is a knight and a pawn down in material. So how does white take advantage here? He decides to capture with the queen, which is not the best move. The computer liked d4, really controlling the center, unleashing the bishop on this pawn. But now we have a rook-queen battery trying to line up here on the weak point on f7 along with the bishop. So let's see what happens next. We have the queen jumping out to guard here, and that's the best move according to the computer. And now e5. So this is an inaccuracy. King over to h1 is preferred by the computer. Maybe with king to h1, it gets the king out of the line of fire if the bishop develops with check, perhaps. So we have a capture of the pawn. Black, getting greedy again, going after another pawn. The computer says this is the best move, but as you notice, the thing about this move is it's kind of opening the king up. White is already castled, but black has his king stuck in the center, so he needs to do something about that king. White continues with a bishop sacrifice. Now, this is a mistake according to the computer. White just gives up more material here, grabs a pawn but gives up the bishop. d3 looks like that would have been a better way to go. Maybe moving to d3, threatening to capture the pawn and attack the queen. But we have the bishop sacrifice. So the best move is not to capture that bishop, but to move the king over to d8 and maybe try to run for cover over here on c7. But of course, black continues the theme of being too greedy, grabs up that bishop. Now he's ahead by +6 of material, but the computer gives the advantage to white after white finds the best move, d4, attacking the queen, and it's a +1.37 advantage. And here the best thing to do is move the queen over to f5 and not take this pawn. But of course, here goes black again, being even more greedy. So a +7 advantage, and there is a check, so that has to be dealt with. We have a block by the bishop. So we notice how white is developing all their pieces. They have the king castled. This rook is developed after castling, especially with the half-open f-file. Knight, bishop, and queen developed. And the only thing developed for black is the queen that's under attack and has to run now. And I guess he developed the king to f7, which is not a good developing move. So now the game continues with the queen retreat. This does line the queen up on the more valuable king. So that's a good strategy. You see a lot of top players developing less valuable pieces on a line with more valuable pieces. So like you could line up a bishop or a rook on the queen, even with other material in between like this pawn. So the game continues with a capture here. An inaccuracy, at least that's what the computer says, but it does set up a discovered attack on the king here, and so that could be dangerous. The best move apparently was just to capture. Queen takes on f4, but then I guess with that you could maybe block with the queen and the queens would be traded off, and white with less material wants to keep the queens on the board to continue this crazy attack against the king, which is kind of hanging out in the open here. So the game continues with the knight developing and helping to block and defend the king, but this is an inaccuracy. Once again, it would be better for this king to just start running over here, maybe to e8, trying to get somewhere and, hide. So the knight is developed. This is a missed opportunity. White is still ahead, but the advantage is smaller now. The computer likes bishop to e5 better, which that would pin the knight to the queen, and then the knight is also pinned to the king. So that would have been a pretty good immobilizing move by playing bishop to e5. But instead we have knight to e5. So the game continues with bishop developing here to e7 to help defend the knight. A big blunder. d5 would have been better, counterattacking, helping to unleash the light squared bishop. So the game continues with the the bishop attacking the knight, adding more pressure. So we see there are 4 attackers and only 3 defenders on this knight. So what does black do next? Tries to, create a threat of his own, lining up here. But, at the moment, the queen is helping protect that square, from a potential mate in one, if the bishop wasn't here. So, what does the computer prefer? Well, once again, running for its life, king up to e8. So the game continues with queen attacking. Now, this is a missed opportunity, but, it ends up working out. That white is still ahead with this move, but apparently just capturing the knight on f6 would be a better move. So we have queen blocking. And now the finale, the continuation of the game. We have knight checking. And, what can be done here? King to f8 is a possibility. But then you would have this check by the bishop. Rook would block. The bishop could capture. And then after king captures, what do they recommend? Queen to e5, pinning this knight to the king. So, that was a lot of arrows. So let's see what actually happened in the game and wrap this up. So the king runs towards the center. Not a good idea. But, he's continuing that theme of being greedy, going after this knight. We have a check. The king grabs the knight. This is an inaccuracy leading to a mate in one. But it looks like, the best move would have led to a mate anyway. So the game continues with check and mate. So, whether you think this is an amazing game or not, there's probably been many better games, of course, but it was entertaining. And, feel free to leave comments. Let me know what you think. If there are any amazing games that you would like to bring up or mention in comments, feel free to do so. Also, like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day. Oh, one other thing. If you haven't left already, I guess I could throw in the accuracy rating. This is pretty crazy. 61.3% accuracy rating for white and only 44.4 for black. And they had 2 blunders by black. So, definitely a lot of mistakes. And this is kind of interesting that these were 2 of the top players of their time. And I guess the game just got so crazy that it was hard to see the best moves for, even these top players. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. So once again, feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.